Special Agents Kyle Seraphin.
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. I'm familiar with the name. I'm familiar with the name.
Former FBI agent Kyle Seraphin, who recently received a letter from the FBI saying, be quiet about this. Kyle, welcome to the show. You're not following orders.
So, Kyle, you had some issues that brought you here as a whistleblower. Joining me now to discuss is FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Kyle, thanks for spending some time with us again. Joining me now is FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Joining me now is a frequent guest of the show, former FBI special agent, whistleblower as well, Kyle Seraphin.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Right, we're lucky to have him with us today. He's Kyle Seraphin, a real whistleblower himself.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Why did you decide to become a whistleblower?
I just made a decision that this is America's information, it's not mine, and I'm not going to let the FBI steamroll me and my family.
Kyle Seraphin, he's a former FBI agent. He's the host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast, and he joins us on the phone. Hello, Kyle. Great to have you back with us, sir.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Kyle Seraphin.
Let's turn it over to two former FBI special agents turned whistleblowers who are holding the Bureau accountable, Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin.
A brave FBI whistleblower who is a friend of our show, also Dan Bongino's. Kyle Seraphin, he's the host of something that strangely is called The Kyle Seraphin Show. Follow him on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka. I'll call you later. We'll talk guns, we'll talk optics.
All right, any update on your whistleblower situation?
No, I expect to be attacked for the foreseeable future.
Okay, at least you're realistic. Thanks so much, Kyle.
All right, Kyle Seraphin, former FBI agent, also host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast. Thanks as always, Kyle. Good to talk to you today, sir.
Perfect, man. God bless you, brother. Thank you for standing up for the truth, man. Thank you for coming on.
Steve, Kyle, you guys are great Americans, and it's an honor to have you on the program. Have a great weekend.
And follow him, Kyle Seraphin, with a PH on Twitter. God bless you, Kyle. This is
Well, so Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you.
Kyle Seraphin, thank you.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Thursday. It is September the 7th, and today we have something that is kind of unusual and exceptional for us. We talked to the recently convicted and sentenced January 6 defendants. We have 5 of them. You are going to want to stick around and listen to this. This is kind of hard to hear, but I think it humanizes men who are many of you have just seen as a headline. Most of you did not have the bandwidth to follow the trials. It's everything that's happened in their lives, and it is the only thing they focused on for the last couple of years. And for us, many of us are just touching on it peripherally. So if you'll give them 15 minutes each, they are timed and prison recorded phone calls. I think you're going to find them fascinating, and I think that you will walk away with some value. You'll get a little sense of the man behind the headlines there. Before we do that, we want to say thanks to our sponsor. Specifically, I want to thank Catholic Vote. Here they are right there, Catholic Vote, and you can go to their website at catholicvote.org. You can sign up for the Loop, which is my favorite email I get every morning. It has all kinds of fantastic news stories. I highly encourage it. Just type in your email address, type in your zip code, and you will join the fight for faith, family, and freedom, and keep yourself well informed with stories like we bring you here and the things that we don't have the bandwidth to bring you. We're also going to say a quick thanks as well to our friends over at Patriot Coolers. They are the best. They have been here. They are OG sponsors of the Kyle Seraphin Show. Use promo code Kyle to get 10% off. You'll get free shipping if you spend more than $50. And you can see right there, they've got the hard coolers, they've got soft coolers, they've got backpacks, they've got day coolers, they've got all kinds of tumblers that are smaller stuff, great gifts, and fantastic carry products. They say Patriot right on the front. They support the Kyle Seraphin Show with a little bit of their proceeds. And also they support American veterans who have mobility issues, which is a great cause to spend your money on. If you're looking for something that's going to keep your beverage hot or cold, by all means, check out Patriot Coolers. Big fans, patriotcoolers.com, and use promo code Kyle, K-Y-L-E. That'll get you that 10% off. And before we forget, unless we forget, I want to say thanks. This is a free promo. Actually, I think we're paying this one forward, but this is our friend Garrett O'Boyle's website. Definitely check out our merch page. If you're looking for a t-shirt, if you're looking for hats, which he's sending me some right now, and you'll probably see me wearing on the show. I don't wear a lot of hats, but I wear these. The-suspendables, plural, suspendables.com. The-suspendables.com. And you can find all kinds of good stuff. My favorite is the Zelensky special, which is coming in. It's an OD green with a suspendables badge right here in the middle of the chest. You can use it when you go in front of Congress and you ask for billions of dollars to fund your pet project, like, I don't know, a war with Ukraine and Russia. Check out the-suspendables.com. All right, without further ado, we're going to get into these interviews. And I didn't really know what I was getting into. I knew this was going to be a little heavy, so you'll see this is a little bit of this is not a lighthearted matter. I think you guys will really get something out of it. So stay tuned for all 5 of them. Hello, this is Kyle Seraphin. Is this Dominic?
Kyle, this is Dominic.
Now I can hear you, buddy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I certainly can.
Right. There we go. All right. We they give us tablets to use at the jail, and if you call from inside your cell, sometimes it doesn't come through that well. So I had to go use the hard line. So I'm glad you can hear me now.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling. Listen, I want to run in through a couple of questions, and I pulled up all you guys' bios, and I think people will be familiar with your stories, but not specifically. I think that's the real issue. So I'd like to use this time to kind of humanize you. And I've talked to people in correctional facilities, and they were usually bank robbers and people who had done violent crimes against other human beings in the world, and you guys are a totally different breed. In fact, even your Wikipedia page starts off saying you're an American convicted felon, which doesn't sound like the way that I would describe you based on reading the rest of it. So maybe tell people where you grew up, where you're from, kind of a little bit about your story, if you would.
Yeah, well, I grew up in upstate New York, in a town called Rochester. It's in between Syracuse and Buffalo. I went to a Catholic school. Had grew up with both a mom and dad, a brother and a sister. A very good childhood. I joined the Marines out of high school, served for 6 years. Got out of there, started my business, started a family, and was pretty much just a simple, hardworking, law-abiding citizen for the first 43 years of my life until everything seemed to go south on January 6th.
Will you tell me? Tell me what you think about this country growing up, the way that you saw it, what the values were in this country, maybe your vision of America until maybe January 2020. What did it look like he was doing?
Well, I wrote a letter that I sent into the Gateway Pundit and explained all about where my morals and just the way I think came from. And it came from my grandfather, who came to this country from Italy around 1960. He came here and he was about 30 years old. And, he came here, he didn't know the language, but he worked hard, and, he was even subjected to some discrimination that immigrants were, put through back then. But, he always said he loved this country. It's the greatest country on the planet. He came here to give the best, future he could to his kids and his grandkids. And, he never once blamed America for anything, and he just worked hard, never took a handout, and passed that along to me, his values of hard work and love of country and honor and faith, and just the type of values that came out of the greatest generation that you just don't see anymore. that's basically where my foundation was.
You touched on something. My wife is actually a New Yorker, and she's Italian by blood, and we kind of laugh in our house about how Italians were not considered white, quote unquote white, until very recently in American history. Sounds like your grandfather kind of knew a little bit about that. There's a lot of smears that have been made about what the Proud Boys organization is and what people who are associated with it are. Can you talk about whether there's a racial tinge to any of it that you saw?
There's not a racial tinge to it at all. As a matter of fact, during our trial, we had several African American Proud Boys, Latino Proud Boys, and even Asian Proud Boys. We even had a rabbi who was a Proud Boy come and testify on our behalf. So it's just more mainstream media nonsense. It's just their way to demonize anyone who thinks like we do with conservative values and who appreciate the West. Our whole credo, basically, if you will, is the West is the best. That's basically what we say, and that's what we stand by. That Western culture is the best. It's the culture that has set the most people free. It's made the standard of living better for everyone. It's everything that we enjoy today in the modern technology has all been based off Western values, and that's what we promote. So the whole idea that Proud Boys are racist or this and that and the other thing, that's just completely made up by the left. It's just the same tactic they use when they smear anyone who's on our side. That's all they have, just racism.
I listened to briefings about the Proud Boys and other groups that were on the political right, and also some that were in the middle, I think, in 2017. And I was shocked at how little the FBI knew about what it was they were talking about, the way that the quote unquote counterterrorism squads were briefing. Will you talk about your interactions a little bit with the FBI, what that looked like, maybe the way you thought about them growing up, and then what your experience was when you had to deal with them after 2021?
Well, the way the Proud Boys think, it never used to be considered right wing. It used to be that's how an American thought. You love this country, you supported it, and if you didn't like it, there's plenty of other communist countries you can go live in. But I have no idea how the FBI came by this. When I was younger, I used to go to it was like almost like an FBI apprenticeship thing that we used to do after school at night because I was actually interested in joining the DEA. So, I actually had an interest in joining federal law enforcement. But, from what I remember back then to what our federal law enforcement has become now, it's totally night and day difference. I mean, right now it's just a politicized arm of the Democrat Party, and all they're doing is helping push the narrative that side has set up, and they're not really doing anything else besides that at this point.
Did you see some of the civil unrest that happened in 2020 around the country?
I did. I did, and it's a big reason why I ended up joining up with the group. Was I've seen so many innocent people being brutalized. Just out practicing their First Amendment right to protest and to free speech. I saw Trump supporters just being attacked by groups of Antifa, and I saw nothing being done about it. I saw cops standing by. I saw them getting away with it. They had a revolving door at the jail where they would be arrested and let right back out on the street again to go out and commit more crimes against innocent people. And I felt like someone needed to stand up. I was early 40s. I felt like I was still decent enough shape, and that I should go out there and do what I could to help protect people. And that's what a lot of the people who joined post November election felt the same way. They were just like, no one's out here standing up for our side, so we need someone to go out there and stand up, with the rest of us, with the Trump supporters, with the people on the right, with the people who loved America against these evil people that are on the left right now.
It does feel like the people on the left don't care about this country, and yet they're somehow fighting for quote unquote democracy and a bunch of this other kind of things. Maybe give us an insight. You said a lot of people joined up after the November election in 2020. What was the energy like? What were the discussions like? And what was the idea behind being in DC in January?
Well, here's a crazy thing, Kyle. I was only with the club less than 30 days before this happened. So my first major I went to one other rally that was in DC in December, but I mean my first major national thing like this ended up being January 6th, where we ended up getting rounded up and arrested and put in here, and now pretty much looking at the rest of our lives in prison. So but it was the same feeling, and I think I truly think that there's a battle between good and evil in this country right now. I really do. And the prosecutor used that line because I wrote it in a journal and they found it and they used it against me over and over again. That I think this is a battle between good and evil. But how can you think it's not? I mean, you have the left; they want to brutalize the kids with transitioning, turning them into trannies or whatever the term is now you're using. They want to destroy God. They want to destroy the families. So I really believe this is a battle between good and evil, and I think people really were starting to understand that on the 6th. That's why so many people rallied and came to D.C. And I think people see it even more now. The problem is, I think people are afraid to actually try to speak out about it now because of what they've been doing on our side.
I think the battle between good and evil mentality will resonate very much with my audience. I have the same feeling. We have the same discussions at my house. How is it going? How is the battle going from your perspective?
From where we are, it looks like we're losing. They just gave me 10 years for, I broke a window that day. It might not have been the smartest thing I ever did, but I got 10 years for it. Okay. And the judge said it was an act of terrorism. They basically gave all 5 of us a terrorism enhancement for minor property damage, a few $100s worth of damage. When you see what the left did with their $2.5 billion worth of damage, destroying everything. So yeah, it seems like a losing, but I think in the long run, you have to step back and look at the bigger picture. I think, what Trump did when he came into office was he put a crack in that wall of darkness, and the light was slowly starting to pour through, and that crack is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think there's way too many people that are awake now. I think there's a momentum, and I think there's a shift in this country right now, unlike anything that has ever been seen in human history. I really believe that we might not be as vocal about it now, but I don't think we can go through 4 years of seeing what we've seen and not just have people completely starting to understand what we're really up against right now. It's a battle for our freedom. It's a battle to not be enslaved. I really do. I think. I mean, even by the fact that we've got some Black Lives Matters leader has been at our sentencing protesting with our families for us against the injustice that's been going on, with us receiving all these high numbers. So they've been there, with the sentencings for the Proud Boys over the last week. So I just really think there's been a shift. I don't think they're going to be able to stop it. I do believe Trump is coming back one way or another. I mean, the only way they're going to be able to stop him is by putting him in prison or killing him. And I think if that happens, I think this country's going to explode. So I don't think the other side is going to be in power for too much longer, but I think they're going to do as much damage as they possibly can before they go out. They're not going to go down quietly. Just put it to you that way.
I heard you say that the sentence is 10 years. I know the DOJ came in and asked for 20 and they got half of what they asked for, which is also still incredible. Yep. I've seen people who produced child pornography and distributed it around the internet get 12 years or less. So that's the kind of sentencing that they gave you for breaking a window on a couple hours of your life that doesn't stand for the rest of it. What are your spirits like having got that information? You sound far more hopeful than I would maybe expect, but you've had some time to process it. So kind of talk us through what that felt like.
Honestly, I don't feel like it's real. I don't feel like any of this is real. It's just not going to happen. We talked, we had somebody talk to Trump last night at one of his rallies or fundraiser he was doing, and they went up to President Trump and said, "Hey, we're outside of Freedom Quarter every night." He's like, "Do you have a message for the guys that are inside the Gulag?" He's like, he said something like, "Tell our heroes that give them this message to say that tell them they're going to be all right. They should have never been. This should have never happened to them in the first place. But let them know they're going to be all right." I truly believe that it's not going to stand. I just don't think. I don't think the country is going to allow this to stand. You don't take someone who broke a window or someone who put their hand on a fence or someone like Enrique who wasn't even there and give him 22 years. I mean, that's the rest of his life. People understand a sense of fairness and justice in this country, and right now we don't have it. Everyone sees the two-tier justice system. It's blatantly obvious every day. I mean, we have a man in the White House who's a total corrupt tyrant, and they're getting away with everything, while we have people on our side who are going to jail for protesting at abortion clinics. So I just don't think that this reign of terror is sustainable in this country.
I think you're probably correct, and I don't know where it goes, but it's got to go somewhere. Obviously, this energy has to go somewhere on both sides. How can people reach out and support you guys? There's a lot of people that kind of know the stories by just touching it peripherally. What can they do to support you that'll keep your spirits up, that'll help you guys get through as you move towards maybe a Trump election and hopefully a pardoning or something like that?
Well, people write to us, which is always great. The letters are a great source of inspiration. I hate to say it, but we have appeals coming up, which are very expensive. We all have individual gifts and goes that people could donate to help us with our appeals, to help our family with finances, because they're not only trying to destroy us, they're trying to destroy our families too. If you'd like to donate to me personally, my gifts and go is it's givesandgo.com /Pizzola. That's my personal one. If you'd like to help out with any donations for appeals or helping our families make it through it, I got 2 kids in college. But everyone just needs to stay strong and just don't let them destroy us. The other day when I walked out of the courtroom, after I was sentenced, I turned around.
You have 1 minute remaining.
I turned around, looked at the prosecutors, and told them Trump won, and everyone knows it, and I believe it, and I know they know it. Everyone knows it. So just don't let them destroy our spirit. That's the biggest thing right now. Everyone's just got to keep their spirits high and realize that good will win. It has to. We're on a one trajectory right now. Either we turn this ship around and things are going to be good for everyone, or we're crashing and burning and the world's going to be destroyed. So that's where we are right now.
I think that's a very sage thought, and I appreciate the defiance there. I think that's the right spirit, and I know we're all going to be praying for you, both in my audience, but also this country. It's got to pray for something to level out, and so I appreciate you spending the time with us today.
No problem, Kyle. I don't want this to hang up on us. This phone will hang up on us, pretty rudely if we don't say goodbye. So let me say goodbye to you now, and thanks for everything you're doing too. I appreciate it. Okay.
You bet. Thanks, Dom. Thanks for spending the time with us, bud.
All right, Kyle. Take care. Bye.
All right. See you. Okay. This is Kyle.
Hello. This is a prepaid debit call from... Thank you for using Global Tellink.
Hey, how's it going? This is Zach Real calling in. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, Zach, I can hear you. This is Kyle Seraphin. Thanks for talking to us, buddy.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
I'm more than happy to. What I want to do is I want to give a little bit of a human touch. Everybody can look your guys' names up and find out. You got stories written about you by an unfriendly media. I wanted you to be able to tell people who you are, where you grew up, the America that you grew up in, and all before all this stuff. And we'll get into your situation in just a moment too. But maybe tell people where you grew up, how you grew up, the families you came from.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Pretty modest living, actually kind of on the poor side, really. My father was a police officer. My mom was a bartender. My dad died at a young age. When I was 12 years old, he passed away. So it was basically just my mom raising me and my brother. And, it was tough. I had my first kid when I was 19. And I ultimately ended up joining the Marine Corps. And when I was 23 years old, I was honorably separated approximately 4 years later, and I went to Temple University after that, where I received 2 degrees, a bachelor's in marketing and a master's in entrepreneurship. I then I worked at Merrill Lynch for a little while and New York Life, where I acquired various financial licenses, Series 7, 66, insurance licenses, things of that nature. And I was actually in the process of opening up my own finance company, advising company right before my arrest. I was part of the Proud Boys. I was the president of Philadelphia chapter. We're a very diverse group. We have men of all backgrounds, and we participated in some protests, quite a few in 2020. Like many people did. There's the COVID lockdowns and everything, and they all pretty much culminated with January 6th. And this is a very, very peaceful guy. I never got in trouble with the law before. I had a DUI when I was young. But I mean, that's the extent of it. Like, I'm not a violent guy. I never got in trouble in any protests I've ever been to before. The accusations against me are absolutely appalling, and they don't justify my character whatsoever. And and we proved that in court, but unfortunately, you can't get a fair trial in D.C. Not with the politically motivated jury that we had. But that's basically me in a nutshell. Like I said, come from modest backgrounds, and I'm a hardworking American. Military vet, love my country, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, you can't see, but I'm nodding along with you right now as you're giving your background, and I appreciate all that. Can you talk about the organization? And you probably have the upside of talking to someone who listened to Gavin McInnes for a long time and have heard him talk about the founding of the Proud Boys and why they came up with it and the Aladdin song and all the deal. I know all the the stuff about the background that people in the FBI obviously did not. But maybe talk about joining that organization and what led you to it and what you liked about it.
Yeah, so I was doing events prior to joining the Proud Boys for my own business purposes and whatnot, and I ended up I was doing a couple of radio shows to promote one of my events, and one of the radio show hosts recommended I look into the Proud Boys. I actually didn't even know who they were at the time. It's about 2018, I want to say, and I looked into them, and of course I Googled the name and seen all kinds of terrible things said about them, but I have an open mind. I know the media is deceitful, and I know it's biased. So I dug a little harder, and I found their website, and I seen that they're all about free speech and entrepreneurship and just typical American things. Like gun rights, all things like that. So it piqued my interest a little bit. I'm a businessman. I've owned multiple businesses in the past, and I figured, hey, let me reach out. Let me see what's up. So I reach out, and I'm expecting the worst. I get to this meeting though, and it's just a bunch of guys hanging around, drinking, talking politics, and most of them were military vets. So immediately I fit in. I fit in well with them because it's the one thing that military vets, it's easy for us to just hit it off. We have similar backgrounds and whatnot.
Yep.
It would be like two retired FBI agents meeting each other. You guys just hit it off right away.
Oh, they're a bunch of nerds, man. I'd rather hang out with vets. I'd rather hang out with that crew. That's my crew for sure.
But yeah, so and I ended up liking it. I had fun with these guys, and like I said, they weren't what the media made them out to be. So I stuck around, and I had a blast. I flew around the country in 2020, and I met a lot of these guys all in these other chapters, and it was the same thing. Every city I stopped at, these guys welcomed me with open arms and showed me their city, and partied with me and everything. And it's appalling the things that are said about the Proud Boys, and why there's not more lawsuits springing up about libel and slander and everything. But that's just a topic for another day, I suppose. But
probably, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I remember listening to Gavin McInnes talk about it and saying he wanted something like the Knights of Columbus, like the Elks Lodge, like people used to join, like men used to go and just be around men and do man things.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a fraternity at the end of the day. And in college fraternities, the whole point is to socialize, to network, expand on ideas, politics, all that. And it's no different with the Proud Boys, So like when I hear this extremist group talk and all this other stuff, I'm like, there's nothing extreme about this group whatsoever.
Right.
Nothing. And it hurts hearing it because like I'm part of this group and I defend it, and there's nothing I feel powerless, especially being in jail now to put up with this, and there's nothing I can do about it. But, I appreciate you giving me the platform and being able to explain it a little bit. So that does help.
No, it's my pleasure. And I think that it's sorely missed that people don't go looking for that information. It's not that hard to find. It turns out even the FBI couldn't find it, even though I gave it to them. I'm interested in your view of America as you were growing up, all the licenses you did, serving our country, going out and starting businesses. Those are very hopeful activities. Can you talk about what you saw America as and how that changed maybe up until maybe the end of 2020 and what that kind of felt like?
Well, I mean, America is still what it is. It's the land of opportunity. I was told at a young age that you can do anything you want in this country. You just have to put your time and effort into it, and that's what I did. It was really hard for me to get into the finance industry. For one, I grew up poor. It's an industry where usually people with the background and money it's their industry, so it's hard to get your foot in the door somebody like me. So when I got my foot in the door, it was a big deal, and it was a huge accomplishment for me to be able to do that. But I put the time and effort into that. It took a lot of time getting to know people and talking to people and networking and getting the education required, and it's not surprising that I did, so when I wanted to take it to the next step and open up my own company, it's just a shining example of what you can do in this country. And, despite all the divisions and all the political nonsense going on in this country, it's still the greatest country in the world. You can still do these things, and, despite what my charges are, and all this, I'm going to take this to the Supreme Court if I have to, and overturn this. But when I get out of jail, I'm still going to have an opportunity as long as I put the effort into it. And I'm going to continue to put the effort into it because I know hard work pays off in this country, no matter how tough things may be. That's still the truth today.
I think people can really appreciate that message. You're looking down the barrel. What was the sentence they asked for, and what did they end up getting with you with the seditious conspiracy and all the others?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. So in the federal system, typically they do this thing called a PSR, it's a pre-sentencing report. Now it's basically you meet with probation officers and they look at your background and this and that, and they recommended 10 years based on the charges that we were convicted of for a guideline. The federal government requested 30 years to life. So the judge ended up taking the government's request as the sentencing guidelines and then sentenced us 15 years less. So I was sentenced to 15 years in jail, prison, whatever. And I think it's important to note that I was not convicted of any assaults at all.
Right.
The judge acknowledged, even though I was convicted of destruction of property, that I didn't actually touch the fence that was broken, and I didn't. But I was convicted of it anyway, much like you'll eventually hear Mr. Terrio was also convicted of breaking that fence when he wasn't even in the city. But so it just shows you right there, like the type of jury we were going up against. You know what I mean? They're convicting people of breaking things that didn't break things, or
right. No, I mean, my empathy, my heart goes out to you guys. I have arrested people in DC. I arrested a guy on Trump's inauguration in 2017, and he was shining a laser pointer into a Park Police helicopter, which is a felony, and he was released. Didn't even have it go on his record. He just had a rough night in jail probably, and then went home. That was the end of it. And he was facing at least 5 years for that. And he'd probably done it 50 times during that day. And then to find out that you guys are doing conspiracy of the mind and, insurrection by remote, apparently, as the media puts it out there, it's so absurd for me, having been in that space, to watch it. But, the unfairness of DC is famous, unfortunately. I'm curious if you can talk about what you feel about the justice system. If you grew up thinking something different, if you thought that people got a fair shake, or if you thought that it was always skewed, maybe kind of give us a take on what it felt like going through this.
Well, like I said, I have a law enforcement family. I come from a law enforcement family, so I have a good sense of the justice system. I've tried to stay out of trouble my whole life, but I do understand how it works. I never thought that it would be, frankly, this corrupt, and I don't think it is nationwide. I was initially granted bail by a magistrate judge in Pennsylvania, and I do recall the judge's body language, and he seemed like it was absurd that they wanted to deny me bail. So the fact that they used the de novo review to take that power from the magistrate judge and bring it into D.C., where I was ultimately my bail was revoked. I mean, it seems to be a DC problem, and not like a nationwide justice system problem, but still, nonetheless, I mean, this is the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice is, at the end of the day, is pulling the strings here, whether it's DC or not, and it's not a good look. At least I do have faith in the justice system and the fact that I'm going to win on appeal. I said from day one, I may not win with this jury. I may not win in trial, but I know I'll win on appeal. Like, we didn't do what we're being accused of, and at trial we were basically convicted of people's feelings on the election and politics and whatnot. If politics had nothing to do with our trial, we probably would have been exonerated. But politics had everything to do with our trial, and that's why we were convicted. And that's the problem. It shouldn't be like that ever in our justice system. But luckily, like I said, in the appeals court, I don't think I'll have that issue. Could be wrong, but I hope to get a fair shake at the appeals court.
Yeah, I know we're all praying and pulling for you guys on that. Talk to me about, you've gone through basic training. You're looking at kind of a rough road ahead, at least while it goes through appeals, and maybe the mindset that you're taking into what's in front of you.
You have 1 minute remaining.
That was quick.
It goes.
Yeah, it does. Sorry. So
just a mindset that's carrying you through what you're looking at, based on some of the other difficult things you've done in your life. How you're maintaining hope.
We prepared for the worst. I've always prepared for the worst in my life. I prepared my wife for the worst in this situation. We had a feeling that this was going to be dragged out because of the politics. Once I was denied bail, we knew something was up. But we knew it was going to be something dragged out, so we prepared for that. And I'm prepared for anything that's thrown at us. But anybody wants to follow through with follow along with our trial. You can follow me on Twitter, Defend Zach, or True Social, Defend Zach as well. So
we'll put those out there for sure. I know we're going to get cut off real shortly. I want to thank you for coming on here. We're going to pump all your guys' gifts and goes as well and share them with everybody. And we do appreciate you taking your phone call for today with us. I know we're going to get shut there. So thanks so much.
Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
It goes quick. It goes quick, y'all. Imagine trying to keep up a family relationship doing that, Ryan? Tough. Really tough.
I don't know how these brave men are doing it, Kyle. I could not do it. I could not do it if I'm them. I'm not going to lie. What's happening to these poor men and women in this country, and the fact that we have politicians that are sitting in Washington right now, they're going on vacation when they work for us, we the people, and their constituents are sitting in a prison cell rotting away right now for crimes that they did not commit.
All right, you ready? You pulling up Biggs? Here we go. This is Kyle.
Hello.
Hello, this is Kyle Seraphin. Is this Joe?
Yeah, this is.
All right, Mr. Biggs. I really appreciate you calling and chatting with us today. I want to kind of get into as much as we can in the 15 minutes we have. So I want to start with, I've read your profiles. I think people have seen your face. People have listened to you on the radio. They've seen you around social media and so on. But maybe tell people who you are, where you grew up. I kind of like to give people the human touch of where people come from. That's not just a face that they see on the news.
Well, I was pretty much born in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. I grew up around the Carolinas and Florida. My mother was a teacher. My father was a Marine, so we moved a lot. I grew up a lot on college campuses at Clemson University, University of South Carolina, University of Florida, Florida State. So I've spent most of my childhood on college campuses, and then I have that Marine Corps aspect, and then I decided to myself after 9/11 join the Army to piss off my dad.
Yeah, I was going to say that must have hurt his feelings a little bit. You went Army when you could have had a much prettier uniform.
Yeah, but you know what? We get better toys, so I was okay with that.
That's fair. Tell me about your time in the Army.
It was fun. I got Fort Bragg. I wanted Fort Bragg. I went there, deployed pretty soon. When I got to my unit, my first sergeant said, "Hey, you've got some college, so that means you're smart." I said, "Yeah, I guess so." And he sent me to EMT school.
I guess there was a shortage of medics at the time when we first went into Iraq. For me, like around 2003, 2004, so they sent me to EMT school. I went over there, did convoy security. I was the first guy. I was like the route finder for all the convoys going through Iraq, and the first one to get blown up. So basically, we would drive around, get blown up, and I would patch myself and my guys up, and that was fun. And then I went to Afghanistan, where we did more of kind of foot patrols, mounted patrols, and things like that through the coast province. We had our own little AO around the Terrazai DC and outside of Salerno, we did a lot of stuff, going out there trying to create choke points for the Taliban, for any of the insurgents coming in and out of Pakistan on the border right there. We try to stop a lot of the flow of the weapons and munitions and things like that. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I've been to a lot of funerals, seen a lot of crazy stuff. When I the military, I needed something to keep that adrenaline going on, and I ended up finding a job as a reporter, and I actually got kind of a gig doing street stuff. So I covered lots of riots, a lot of protests turned riots, and terrorist attacks all over the world. I was there just a day after the Bataclan Theater attack. I went there on the raids with the police in Saint Denis in France when they were looking for the ISIS fighters. I followed them all the way up into Molenbeek, Belgium, and found the places where the suspected ISIS fighters came from. So I've been in it for a while. I like doing that, but never in a million years I think I'd find myself in jail being charged with something akin to terrorism for merely walking around that day of the Capitol.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to touch on there. You've seen combat, you've seen what war looks like, you've seen what riots and real street violence looks like. Can you compare that experience based on many hours in it, and maybe against what you saw for the couple hours that went on January 6th?
Well, January 6th was an interesting thing. So you had multiple groups of people who had permits all across the DC area. Quite a few around the Capitol area. Then you had the main one at the Ellipse where the president was speaking. We had heard the president before, so we chose to go to some of the other events. And they had multiple permits set up around that spot. So it was a unique environment that you had. Instead of being like one regular protest when I was in Ferguson, Missouri, you had everybody congregate in one area. Then one thing sparks that. And it picks up from that one area, and the police and the firefighters and everybody knew how to respond to that that active violence that kind of sparked the riot. Here it was from all over the place. You had people coming from multiple different rallies from multiple places. You didn't know who was in what group and what their intentions were. So it was really a recipe for disaster. When I was standing in the front up there, I was on the bullhorn. I was doing my normal chants that I always did, but about 25 yards in front of me, there was another guy that we call Black Megaphone Guy. We still don't know who he is. He was telling people, now that we've gone back and been able to see footage, hey, you need to get them into the front lines, get up here to the fence. We need to push this fence down. We need to charge forward. We need to go to the Capitol. But I get blamed for that somehow. And the footage shows this other man doing that. What sparked what happened was this one simple guy went up there, pushed. They had the right people around them that were there to kick it off. The crowd didn't know what was going on, and as the fence went forward, people just started flooding forward, and it kind of went out of control. What I saw in Ferguson was when they announced the no indictment on Officer Darren Wilson. One person threw a bottle at the fire department right over my head. I was actually with my camera crew set up at the fire department. Bottle went over my head, shatters, and then everything from there went to chaos. Rounds are flying, pepper balls, you name it, MRAPs are in the street, and it went on for days. This happened much the same, but they're trying to conjure up the story and say that it was a lot more organized than what it was when it wasn't. There was nothing organized about that day. That was another protest turned riot, and it sucks that it happened, but it happens all the time, and I'm not sure why they're making such a big deal out of it with us, and they don't with the other ones.
I think a lot of Americans are seeing that same thing, the disproportionate response to what happened in Ferguson, what happened in Baltimore, what happened in 2020 in a dozen cities around the United States. and you've kind of just touched on it. What were your feelings going in after watching what happened throughout the say March to December of 2020? What were you feeling about this country?
I knew things were on edge, and I knew things were, intense. People were kind of at a point where, even on radio stations like NPR and things like that, people were talking about civil war. That was a pretty common topic amongst people. And when I was doing interviews, let's say Dateline and things like that, I had a lot of reporters coming to my house in that time frame interviewing me and asking me what do I think about a coming civil war. This is something that everyone was talking about at that time. But for some reason, the government wants to hit in on the fact that I've talked about it before. I talked about it simply because that's my job as a reporter, and it was a main topic at that time. People are on edge. People don't trust the voting system that we have in place. People don't trust our elected officials. They don't trust these people that are appointed over us, and they smell corruption, and there's fear in the air, and people don't know what to do. And I think that's a kind of a powder keg for, what happened on January 6th.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We talked to Zachary about his hope for appeal. What are your feelings about the justice system as it stands right now, and how things are looking down the road for you guys?
I mean, not only do I hope that this appeal system works, America should hope that it works, because if we can't get a good, fair try in the appeal courts here, I think we're pretty much doomed as a country. If they can come after me and charge me with terrorism for shaking a fence, what else are they going to go after people for next? This is only going to embolden the Department of Justice. It's only going to embolden those individuals who got away with this. And we need to make sure that, as American citizens, that we're voting when it's time to vote, that we're paying attention to the people that we vote, and we look at the ways that those people have voted before in the past, and make sure that we put people in power that should be in power. I think that's something that needs to be done, because if we don't get a good, fair trial, or we don't get a good, fair appeal in D.C., it's hard to say, then we're kind of dependent upon a Trump presidency or someone else out there, a dark horse who might come in down the road, and I just don't know. I think they've already gotten away with so many things on the left that right now it's too easy for them to get away with it, because no one's really done anything to stop them.
I agree with that as well. My audience kind of hears me talk about the fact that there's a certain energy that is on the left right now that is very mobile. They've done sort of, if you want to call it, the political dry run by going after a lot of people from January 6th in a way that I did not see. I couldn't even imagine someone telling me to go investigate a misdemeanor when I was working there. I think I would have laughed it off. I've turned down, felonies on a regular basis because we didn't have time or resources. And then they went after Trump in a way that was unprecedented, which you guys probably saw from, while under the shadow of indictment. And now that you guys have been, convicted and you're dealing with a sentencing, and you're seeing 4 indictments hang over the former president, what are your thoughts about the energy level that is going into this sort of persecution, I'll call it?
Well, I can tell you his co-defendants are probably going to be scared right now, because, like I said, the left, they have an energy right now that is probably akin to a steamroller. It's kind of hard to stop one of those, and they've gotten away with so much, and they're going to continue to keep pushing and rolling over as many people as they can until they feel like they're safe to continue leading the way they want to. That's the sad thing. I don't know. It's hard to say right now. I'm at a loss sometimes. What I saw in the trial really blew my mind when the FBI agents were coming in and like, we got this guy, this Joe Big. We went to his house and they laid down on the table the evidence, and it was coins, challenge coins, and Proud Boys T-shirts and flags for my room and things like that. They're like, yeah, we got this guy. He's evil scum. And I'm like, you've got coins where we tell dick jokes. You've got T-shirts making fun of each other. This is insane. We're really wasting this kind of money on this, and they're taking things that we said that are clearly jokes, and they're trying to make this some serious thing. We're a group of guys who joke about everything. We literally, during the trial, we were pulling pranks on each other. Me and Enrique, when Enrique, in between breaks in the trial, when we were downstairs in the holding cell, I was toilet papering him like he was a mummy. We even in all of this, we're just a bunch of guys who like to joke. We were doing like 3-legged races with our legs cuffed together, running and chasing each other around the courtroom. You've got to have fun, and you've got to maintain
some kind of morale in all this, but you know, it's bad out there, and they're crazy, and they're coming after us, and they came after me and my buddies, and I don't know, man. I mean, what do you guys, what do you think is happening, and what can be done?
Well, we're going to keep pushing awareness. I don't know. I feel like it's going to, I think the things you highlighted are true, that there's a lot of ugliness and there's an awful lot of anger that seems very impotent and mispointed. And why it would be at you is it's a proxy for something. I just can't figure out what it is that they hate so much other than they hate America. I'm curious. Now I've talked to Dominic. I talked to Zachary. I'm talking to you. You all have gone through a basic training. You've all kind of dealt with the suck in the military. You talk about how that may give you guys the ability to have that kind of gallows humor where you can tie each other up like mummies and do three-legged races.
Yeah, I guess. You know, I don't know. I mean, I grew up. My not my real brother, but you know, like my blood brother David. He was a Marine. We always did that. You know, when you're around a bunch of guys who've seen a lot of crazy stuff, you've got to learn to joke in the bad times and the good times. You've got to learn to find that glitter of hope and that ability to reach in and get that little bit of fuel left in your body to push and keep going. You know, I don't quit. I don't have quit in me. God didn't build me for quit. God built me to keep going and to keep fighting, and I'm gonna fight until the day that I die. You know, and after that, I hope people still fight in our name, and I hope people still continue to push for justice and push for the right thing, because you know what, if you're in this to quit, then you're in this for the wrong thing, because we're at a war right now, and you know, a war for our freedom, a war for our rights, a war for our country, or for our culture, for what we, you know, our values, for Christian values, for the nuclear family. If you're not willing to fight, then you need to move the hell over and let people who are willing to fight get in there and take control.
You mentioned God, you mentioned faith, you mentioned the war. That's a spiritual war, I think. Maybe tell us, what do your prayers sound like when you're laying down and closing your eyes at night?
Well, I always ask God first to give me understanding before I read the Bible. You know, God, you know, kind of talk to me and tell me what it is you're wanting me to see here, and then with that, God, give me the understanding I need and the wisdom I need to implement what it is you're trying to tell me, and I try to meditate on that and sleep on.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Family, and I pray for my enemies. I pray for the judges. I pray for the court system. I pray for the AUSA attorneys. I pray for everyone out there that's doing the wrong thing, that God will reach into them, soften their hearts, and help them see the truth and to do the right thing and help us out.
I can appreciate all that, and I think that's some wise words. We have the website scrolling underneath right now, freejoebiggs with 2 Gs.com. Is there a better website, or is that the best one to for people to kind of keep track of what you're up to?
freejoebiggs.com. That's it. That's the best way to go. freejoebiggs.com, and that's where you can help take care of my little girl. I lost my military retirement from all this, so she no longer gets that money. And this also helps to pay my lawyer to continue fighting through the appeals, you know, in the circuit courts all the way up into the Supreme Court.
All right. We will promote that as well. And Joe, thanks for talking to us. I don't want to get cut off unceremoniously, so I just want to say I really appreciate it, and we're praying for all you guys.
All right. Thank you. Free the Proud Boys. We'll see you guys.
Thank you for using Global Tellink.
You want to see something that's also going to make you upset, Kyle?
Might as well.
Go ahead and search on Google Free Joe Briggs. Tell me what you come up with. Guess what I come up with? Google is purposely hiding his content. You can't see it anywhere over here. I'm searching Free Joe Biggs, which his website is www.freejoebiggs. It should be the first web page that pops up here. It should at very least be on page 1.
Yeah. Not even
nowhere to be found.
It's all just articles about it being sentenced. What if we take the spaces out of it? Nope.
Nope.
Nope, not at all.
Did you mean Free Joe Biggs?
Yeah, I've got Ethan coming in next. Yes, there he is. This is Kyle.
Hello. This is a prepaid debit call from
Nordine.
This is Kyle.
Hey, Kyle. This is Ethan Nordine.
How you doing, Ethan? I'm watching our clock here. I'm getting better at doing this thing, so it's a sad thing to have to be good at. But I really appreciate you speaking with us today, and I'm looking forward to a few minutes of talking to your time. I've done the same thing with the other guys. I want to humanize the story of who it is. Everyone's seen like a picture in the news, or they've seen a name in the headline. I'd like you to kind of tell people who you are, where you grew up, what kind of family you came from, what part of America you saw growing up and what that lens looks like.
Yeah, sure. Well, my full name's Ethan Nordine. Some people actually know me as Rufio Panman. That's my Patriot name out there on the West Coast. But I grew up in Washington State near the Seattle area my whole life, and growing up, I was raised by a great family, had a great upbringing. I went to private school. I spent a lot of time in the woods. I rode horses. I was kind of a country boy, dirt bikes, all that kind of stuff. And so I kind of grew up in a conservative family, you could say. And we've always had a pride for hard work and just kind of living off the land. And I think that kind of, sparked my pride in this country. And I think the last 10 years or so growing up, I really started to see the dynamic of my state change, Washington. Anybody who's from that area has been there knows what I'm talking about, the dramatic change from like kind of this leftist takeover. And starting in 2017 is when I started getting active in the Patriot movement. Just wanted to lend a hand, see what I could do to help out with a lot of this destruction and stuff that was happening in the cities, these rallies and stuff like that. And so, 2017 was really when I started to kind of get involved, obviously with the Proud Boys. And, the rest is, I don't know if you want to get into the rest now or if you have any other questions on my upbringing.
No, this is your story. It's whatever you want to tell, and I'm more than happy to hear that part.
Yeah, so 2017, it was actually May Day, and if anybody knows what May Day is, it's one of the biggest days of protest in a lot of major cities.
Certainly in Seattle.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. And it was just projected that there was going to be a lot of destruction, and at the time, this was, obviously President Trump had already, stepped into office, and people had really spiked up their, activity and as far as protests go, and there's just a lot of destruction, people getting banned from colleges and violence. And so I just, I decided I had enough. I'd seen all the YouTube videos everybody's seen. And I went out to Seattle with the anticipation of just helping out local law enforcement, protecting local businesses. And I ended up meeting a small group of Proud Boys. And back then, Proud Boys was, just very unorganized.
Name 5 breakfast cereals, that kind of thing.
Together. Yeah, just a bunch of, blue collar type dudes, mostly just joking around, everybody making fun of each other. But, we were there with the kind of, centered idea that this was kind of messed up what was going on. And, from all different walks of life, we just kind of came together in that moment. And back then it was really easy to kind of get into the Proud Boys. There was like no vetting or anything like that. And so from 2017 to about 2018, I became pretty prominent. A prominent leader in the Proud Boys. Some people know that I had this incident in Portland, Oregon in 2018 where a Antifa individual attacked me with a collapsible baton, and it was a video that went viral. I knocked him out with one punch, and it was the punch heard around the world. And my fame kind of exploded overnight. And it was also how everybody kind of from then on out kind of labeled me as a violent extremist just because I fought back. And this is kind of a pivotal point for a lot of people that I think can relate to my situation, that, when you fight back, you immediately become this violent perpetrator. You're not allowed to fight back. And I think that it's interesting. You saw it in my trial a little bit, that the government kind of accuses me of recruiting. My recruiting ability in the Proud Boys was because of my ability to fight, was what they said.
Yeah, they quoted you as a thuggish level of violence, which I thought was really interesting.
Right. Yeah, and what's funny is I have no record at all. Now I do, I guess I can say. I have, and it's, you'd think like if I was really out there doing this stuff, I'd have some kind of track record, violence, as far as violence goes. And it's just not there. It doesn't exist because, I've always prided myself on, trying to de-escalate as much as I can and only using force if absolutely necessary. And I mean, if you've ever been to some of these events out in the West Coast, they get, I mean,
I thought I was going to shoot some people the last time I was in Portland, for what it's worth. And I also thought the FBI would hang me out to dry.
Exactly. You know, and you get caught in, you know, you're between a rock and a hard place when you're in these situations where it's like, well, I absolutely see the need for force here, but I'm also scared as to the repercussions because I know what the media is going to say, and I know there's probably going to be an investigation. And now that we're, especially after January 6th, you just feel like your hands are tied. And so I think really what's going on here is what we're seeing is you see people like me. I've kind of been, you know, a unique individual within the Proud Boys where I'm being, you know, punished for basically standing up against what I believe is wrong and actually using force against people that, you know, are acting out violently. And it's just, I think that's the government or whoever wants to discourage that completely. I don't even know. It's hard to say. I think that's why I'm being punished. Because you saw in court, there's just really they couldn't really pin me on anything. You know, they just kept jumping around in circles talking about how I'm a violent individual and how I advocate for force. And I've only ever used force when it was necessary, and it's only been a handful of times. So it was kind of comical to watch them dance around and try and, you know, pin this label on me.
I'm looking. We've got your GiveSend go up, and we're going to put that up. I've got standinthegap.foundation. Is that another website that would also reach you?
Sorry, what was the last one?
Maybe this is the wrong one. We've got support Ethan Nordine though as the GiveSend go. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
And I'm looking at the photo there, and I'm looking at the pictures we've got from the day of, and it's like you would have fit in with my buddies who are, you know, kind of mixed bag of military, law enforcement guys who know that sometimes you need to throw a punch, guys who would still go to church, but you know, would stand up for their kids or their family. So it's hard. It sounds like they're making an example, the guilt by association, and then they gave you 18 years for this. A judge came down and said that was a reasonable sentence. Like, what was the feeling when that happened?
You know, it's a very unique situation. I think that there's a burden that kind of comes off your shoulders when you finally are rid of this whole procedural process, and I've kind of had to look at it the best way I know how, and I just feel like, you know, I think it's better that they go as crazy as possible on people like me because, well, like all the Proud Boys here, because, you know, it makes it look so much crazier, and I think it gets people's attention more, just how crazy this is. And part of me just doesn't believe it. It's not real, you know, so it's hard for me to really have a negative response to it. I'm obviously frustrated that this is, you know, our court system doing this to us. Our justice system feels justified in giving this sentence down. And, you know, at the end of the day, this is something that we've all defended and a lot of us would be willing to die for. And it's kind of discouraging. I mean, it's heartbreaking to see that it's so easy to hand down sentences that, you know, are destroying people's lives.
And yeah, for my audience's benefit, I've seen people who have knocked out and broken the face, like the orbital sockets of old women on an Indian reservation and get less than 4 years. I've seen people convicted of distributing and creating child pornography get 10 years or less, 12 years tops, and they're not going to serve all that. And then you guys are getting things like 18-year sentences and 15 and 22 years. What does the process look like? What is your what's keeping you guys going as far as energy? And everyone kind of has a different motivator. What's giving you the hope to wake up every morning and put your feet down on the floor?
There's a lot. I know that there's still a lot of people out there fighting for us, and so obviously we want to keep the energy alive there. I really think that we're in the midst of a new revolution of some kind. I'm not, but when I say that, I'm not advocating for violence or anything for anybody who's listening. So,
of course.
I just think that there's
and isn't it sad that we have to say that right now?
Exactly. Everything will be used against you. It can, but it definitely will.
Right.
So I think that, people are waking up. I've talked to a lot of people, even people who aren't J6ers, who see what's going on. And there just seems to be this kind of, a lot of people, when they talk about the Great Awakening, it definitely seems like it's a legitimate statement. People are seeing what's going on, but you don't even necessarily need to see what's going on to just feel the kind of general energy that's being exuded right now that it just feels like something is, just around the bend. And I think it's just kind of a feeling of being ready and constant state of readiness of whatever's happening and being aware, getting out there and spreading the truth as much as possible, preparing people. I think that's kind of like just gearing up for whatever's coming, and being ready is what keeps me kind of going,
That's fair. When you look into your crystal ball, and you guys have an awful lot of time to think, I imagine right now, where do you see the forks in the road for this country, and especially from your unique position in it and having seen what it's just done to you?
What do I anticipate the future to look like?
Maybe a couple options
I
if you
think
see a couple forks in the road out there, because I'm sure there's a couple of possibilities in your mind.
There's a couple possibilities for sure. Well, one, Trump gets elected and, a ginormous celebration ensues. Obviously that's the number one desired outcome. Number two, he doesn't. And I think this is where it kind of gets tricky, because I'm just hoping that not everybody's putting their eggs in that basket, all their eggs in that basket. I think, like I said, we need to be in a state of readiness for whatever happens. Hope for the best and prepare for the worst. We need to get active. We need to get involved. Sign up for some groups that you support. Write letters. Make phone calls. Get out there in the streets and get active. Because there's a third option that's where people don't get involved and people kind of put all their eggs in the Trump basket and it doesn't work out. And I think everything just becomes normalized, what's happening. And you're already starting to see it. You can pretty much point any direction. You got the border, you got the schools that are teaching our children all these things. And you can kind of, hear everybody say, oh man, that's crazy that that's happening in pretty much every facet of our country. And it's kind of sad because it's becoming a normal conversation. Oh, it sucks that this is happening. It sucks that it's happening to what's happening to these J6ers, and it sucks that, they got sentenced to 22 years, but what do we do? And that's option number three is, I think, our worst potential outcome, that people just kind of give up. And I really don't feel like, currently, I don't believe that our spirit is currently in that position where we're ready to just give up. So I'm hoping that people, are ready to fight for what they believe in. Again, not in a sense of physical fighting, but in a sense of
in a metaphorical and rhetorical way.
Metaphorically speaking, right?
My buddy got in trouble with this with the FBI too.
Exactly, right. And so you got, I think people need to be inspired. People need to be given permission to say, hey, you know what? What you're feeling. It's correct. What's happening is wrong. And so, what are we going to do about that as a country? And I think that comes down to a lot of people be willing to step into leadership positions who maybe, felt like, well, I don't know if I'm ready for that, or I don't know if that's my job. Like, look, if you feel like you are compelled to step into the shoes of, any situation, do it. Like, we need leaders really badly. Our kids need leaders more than anything right now. If you have a hard time picking an area that you need to fight in, just think of our kids. If we can't stand for them, then I don't really think we can stand for them.
You have 1 minute remaining.
All right. And in our last minute here, as the lady has just told us, can you tell people where they can support you, the best ways that you would appreciate support, whether it be letters or financial or anything else, and we'll share all that along?
Yeah, honestly, the thing that we need the most right now is financial support with the legal battles ahead in our family. It's honestly, I wish there was more that we could do, but that's the biggest resource we need right now. It's just financial.
And are your attorneys, are they publicly defenders, or are they people that are like a Shipley or something like that that's involved in a defense fund?
My attorney is Nick Smith. We're looking at some potentially get some other appellate attorneys as well, because we're on the appeal side now. But he's a phenomenal attorney, and between all of us, we have a really good power team as far as legal defense goes. Okay, well, we're going to share all that, and rather than get unceremoniously cut off, I want to thank you so much for speaking to us today, Ethan, and hang in there. We're praying for you. Thank you, Kyle.
All right, bud.
Thank you for using Global Tellink.
This is Kyle.
Hello. This is a prepaid debit call from
Henry.
This is Kyle Seraphin. Is this Enrique?
Kyle, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
This is Enrique.
All right, my friend.
Yes, I hear you fine. How's my audio coming in?
It's great. We've got it recorded and it's coming in nicely. And I'm going to manage the time on this if that's cool with you. I'm getting better at doing this, which is sad to say. But I want to start. I want to say that you're probably the most maligned person. I think your case, to me, seems like the most insane thing I've ever heard, being convicted of a conspiracy without ever being part of the thing physically. So maybe you would tell people the most important thing, which is who you are as a person, where you grew up, the lens that you bring to life and the family you came from. And if you would do that, that'd be, I think, illuminating for folks.
Okay. Well, as some of your listeners may know, my name is Enrique Tarrio. I was born and raised out of Miami, Florida, from Cuban parents, raised in a very, anti-authoritarian home, specifically anti-communist home. Like I said, I was born and raised in Miami. I think I went to a little bit of college. I'm self-educated. And I'm very, very, I've been a very active activist since 2004. And, I'm very passionate about what I do.
What do you think about this country growing up, especially with immigrant parents? Like, what did you see this country as? And maybe tell me how that's changed over the last 2-3 years.
Well, I'm going to tell you, my views of the country have completely evolved over the course of these 2 years that I've been in jail. But before that, I felt like the country was going in a very poor direction, very negative direction. The polarization was seen. I saw the polarization coming a mile away. And I'm a Trump supporter, simply. And that's why I supported Trump, because I saw him as something different that would come in and change the status quo and drain the swamp. And actually what we saw was, how powerful the swamp really was. And I'm sitting here as a testament to that. And like you said, I get what a conspiracy is. I don't have to be there in order to be charged with the conspiracy. I get that whole notion. But the problem was that I was against everything that they're accusing me of. I tried to make peace. I tried to work with law enforcement before these rallies to keep people safe from people that wanted to harm them, Trump supporters that were being harmed by members of Antifa, things like that. And I'm paying the price for that now. I'm paying the price for that.
Yeah. Would it surprise you to learn that they were briefing about Proud Boys and sort of considering them a far-right organization in 2017 in Washington Field by the head of the domestic terrorism units there?
That absolutely does not surprise me whatsoever. This politicization of like these federal agencies has been around for a very long time, and I think a lot of people are waking up to it now. But it's been around. It didn't come around right after Biden got elected. It's been there. Biden has just done a better job at weaponizing it. And I've always had huge respect for the law enforcement community, but when you're talking about the FBI, they are what they are. They're a Gestapo force.
Has your opinion on that changed over your lifetime? Obviously, recently, I think it makes sense. Was there something you saw growing up that was different? I started seeing a little bit of it before, but I wouldn't really. It wasn't my cup of tea to focus on that. But yeah, I did see a little bit of change in that, and I saw it in 2017 with us specifically. When it came to federal agencies. Again, when I would come into cities and we'd get threats from other states, I'd reach out to the FBI and make sure that, all rally goers are safe. But I did see like there was a hesitancy from them. Yeah, I think there was an extreme lack of knowledge there, having received some of those briefings and being a guy who, watched Gavin McInnes and have heard him tell the story of the Proud Boys many times. It was really strange to listen to somebody come up and give a brief and have literally no concept of who they were and no concept of what you guys were about and, saying things that made no sense to me. Maybe, you've been called a racist in the news media. You've been demonized in a way that I think is pretty incredible. Maybe talk about what that felt like and as you first got it, and then maybe as your skin thickened up.
So, I mean, obviously calling me a white supremacist is probably the stupidest premise I've ever heard in my life.
Sure.
I'm a very brown individual. I speak better Spanish than I do English. I have African roots. And the only thing is I've never taken anything that anybody tells me to heart. I've been called every name in the book, and I don't take it to heart. I actually take it in stride, and I feel like the more they do it, the more effective I've been throughout the years. But it does have a dampening effect on it, because even people on our side that don't know, that hear these things, sometimes people don't want to talk to us because of that. And, my mission was to make sure that I spread the message through as many means as possible. So, yeah, it does make it a little difficult, but I did take it in stride. It didn't bother me specifically. I mean, we've seen them call everything that they've called us, they've done to just regular Trump supporters, white supremacists, white nationalists, Nazis. I mean, you don't have enough time on this show for me to say all the things that I've been called.
No, I'm kind of a fan of being called those things as well. I feel like it means I'm just being an honest human. Maybe talk a little bit about, we had some kind of high hopes after 2022 with the election and taking the speakership in the House.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a lot of movement by politicians. Have you had any reach out to you or any support that you've felt that is tangible from the Republican Party?
I have not gotten any politicians have not reached out to us. I've heard that some of them are supporting us on their social media, specifically with these sentences that were handed down between last week and yesterday. I appreciate that support, but we need more. In the next couple of days, I will be speaking in length about something that happened to me during my incarceration. I'll probably be talking a little bit more about it tomorrow. I'm not sure what medium I'm going to be sharing that, but if you want to have me back on, and I'll talk about it. But I am calling for the weaponization committee, the weaponization of federal government committee, to shoot me a subpoena, because I have information that I think that they would see as very, very crucial to what that weaponization is. I've seen it firsthand. I can't really talk about what it is on this show, but it is something very explosive, something that's going on right now with recent events. And what bigger weaponization it is than me being put in prison for 22 years of my life for wrong think and speech. I know I'm a rabble rouser. I know that that's what I am. I know that I speak truth to power, and I speak it as energetically as possible, but it costing me 22 years of my life is not, it costing a day of my life is not feasible. And these politicians need to step up more. But again, I asked the weaponization committee to shoot me a subpoena, and I got information that is more explosive than anything that they've ever seen.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, for starters, you're welcome back 100%. You tell me when. And the other piece of it is that I keep noticing that these politicians seem to act like J6 is a non-winner for them, and therefore they're hoping it'll go away. You guys are obviously in a horrible position right now. Maybe talk about your understanding of the First Amendment and how something like this could happen in America.
I mean, like I told you, me being locked away for 2 years has radically changed my position on, how our government works, what the Constitution is, and who the American people are. I believe we're fighting for constitutional rights that haven't existed in this country in a very long time. I mean, I hate to say it, but I can't name one constitutional protection that is protected. We're seeing these judges, and I've heard it throughout these January 6 cases, where judges themselves are saying that the First Amendment is not absolute. By God, if the First Amendment isn't absolute in our Constitution, I don't know what is. The Second Amendment doesn't exist. I love I love that founding document, but in this country and to this government, it means nothing. It really does mean nothing to them. But going through trial has completely disgusted me on how this justice system works. There is no free speech defense to this government and the prosecution. People are being put in jail for simply protesting something. I get it. And I've said it a million times. If you assaulted a police officer, you should do some jail time. Not as much jail time as that they're given, but you should do some jail time. If you broke something, you should be charged with destruction of property. You got me? If you trespass, you should be charged with trespassing. But if you spoke out against the government, I definitely don't think that somebody should be charged with sedition. I really believe that you know, we're not at a crossroads. I'm sorry to say it, we're not at a crossroads. We've been traveling down the wrong path for a very, very, very long time. Okay, and if you speak out against it, here's another thing about members of law enforcement and free speech. Like I said, I try to work with law enforcement as soon as I go ahead and I get to a city to make sure that everything's peaceful. I tried to bring one of those law enforcement officers into our trial as a witness, and guess what happened to him, Kyle?
I don't know.
They went to his house and they told him that if he were to testify, that they would put him in jail. And you know what he told me? He's like, look, I can't do it. I can't risk my job. I can't risk my family. You know what they did 10 days after they convicted us? They arrested that gentleman. He's a lieutenant of the force. He's been with Metropolitan Police Department for 22 years as a lieutenant in the force. Okay? If you go against this government, they are going to put you in jail. I don't know how to fix it. I don't have a solution, but I know that we're not doing enough.
I 100% agree. My podcast this morning was called Post-Constitutional America. And for some reason, we've allowed it to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us had our heads down. We're trying to do something else. And we looked up and suddenly a lot of this country is gone. As far as what you're looking at, what do your appeals look like? What is your attorney's sort of ambitions going forward? And obviously you have to push this thing, but is there, you know, are you feeling okay about how that might look? Or you have any hope going forward?
I do have hope. I just don't know what that hope consists of. We are going to appeal, but we're appealing to the same justice system that put us in here in the first place.
Right.
I mean, I get it. I'm going to appeal. It's a 5.5 month trial, so there's a lot to appeal. A lot of things that happened that I feel that I didn't agree with the judge. I respect the judge's opinion on a lot of things, but I just disagree with him wholeheartedly on some of those things. And the government, you know, the government has been disgusting through this whole process. You know, the things that they've done is unheard of. You know, trying to put people in jail for decades for this is gone. My attorney is having a press conference tomorrow. I don't know how to tell you guys how to get it out, but Naeed Hassan, he's having a press conference tomorrow as far as my appeals go. And, you know, I'm just trying to navigate, you know, and I'm not a type of person, I'm not going to ask for a pardon. If President Trump comes back in, I'm not asking him for a pardon. I'm asking him to take a look at our case, and see if justice was served.
Yeah, I think a
And
lot
I
of people,
guarantee you I already know the answer.
well, I think a lot of people have that same sense and they're nauseated by it. My producer and I were having the same conversation. It's like, it's so disgusting. Like, where do you even begin? How can people support what you guys are about? And I know we're going to run up on the 1 minute warning here in just a second. So like, what can people do from where they're at right now to help you out?
Okay, so to help, I'm not asking for help for myself. My family's the one that needs it. The website is Tario Family.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Of course, it breaks me off.
Yep.
It's TarioFamilyFund.org. That's TARRIO FamilyFund.org. If you guys can help us out, I mean, you know, that'll go a long way. I've never really asked for money. This is my first time that my family has asked to help them out because they're struggling right now, and that's the most important thing to me. Family, you know, that's the order of things. Patriotism and my country is not on my top priority list anymore. I'm sorry to say that, but it's my God, my family, and my tribe. And my tribe is the American people.
Yeah, the ones that still care about what used to be there, right? I really appreciate you spending the time with us. And like I said, you're welcome to come back and talk to us. Any message you want to share here, you can always come back and talk. And we're praying for you guys, and we'll share all those websites. I don't want to get cut off by the buzzer here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
You too. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live every weekday at 0930 Eastern Time. That's 8:30 here in Texas, America, streamed live from Liberty Hill, Texas, America. A troubling picture of America. Men behind bars for seditious conspiracy, probably the most absurd use of our justice system yet. And that last one from Enrique was probably the most troubling for me, a man who wasn't even physically in D.C. on the time. We will try to put out some information about that press conference when I have it. You can watch my Twitter feed, so follow me at Kyle Seraphin, and I will get that out there. We want to say thanks to all of the folks in the live chat. You guys are the best. There is no one better. Thanks to all of our new sponsors of the channel, which is going to be the subscribers. You can always do that. You can join the chat if you like at rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin for our bumping live chat at 0930 Eastern. Folks, we also really appreciate all of the 5-star reviews. Here is another one, almost 700 right now on Apple. This one is written by Minnesota native MN. It says, American Patriot, 5 stars. I first heard you when you were interviewed by Dan Bongino. You talked about the chop zone in Minneapolis. I'm from MN. I'm from Minnesota, and I had no idea that was going on. Your podcast is very refreshing and informative. Keep up the amazing work. Minnesota native, we're happy to bring you news wherever we can. And unfortunately, it's not always good news in this climate, but we will keep doing it. I'm glad you're refreshed, and we're really appreciative of the 5-star review. Folks, if you want your 5-star review read, click on the link below in the show description, and you too can have your review read. We appreciate those 5-star reviews. They are fantastic, and they do bump us up. Please follow my producer, Ryan Matta, who did some outstanding work making sure we got this recorded. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Matta Media. There he is right there, the man, the myth, the legend. And you can find him on True Social at Ryan Matta. That's Matta, Ryan Matta. Follow him as well. Folks, don't forget to like this show. Make sure that the thumb is green. I know Eric Jason's in there riling you all up, making sure that the like is freed. Hit that thumbs up. And I don't know, pray for this country, pray for these men. If you can help them out financially, we will share all their gifts and goes in the show description so you can find all of them. If you want to pick one that you rotate through, I think that would be a fantastic use of an extra $5 or $10. These things really do stack up if there's a lot of you out there. And I've seen it with my own eyes that it can make a really big difference in people's lives. So we do appreciate it. And I know I'm going to be giving to them as well. I feel like the injustice is so strong. Pray for this country, pray for each other, pray for these men, and we'll see you again. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at